So everything is looking pretty good, but maybe those little things on the side are just a tad too small, or maybe the hole in the middle is a bit too small. Can we correct that afterwards, if we model a lot by feeling, by eye? And if you notice something in retrospect, how can we deal with that? Well, first of all, it's very good that we kept things separate out here. So if you go into edit mode and press L over one of these protrusions, you'll see that it selects one of these things out here, and it doesn't mean it links to the geometry of the lid. Now, of course, we can go around and individually select all 50 of these, but we're not stupid. Instead, we select the lid, and we press L, and then we press Command I for invert. And that means that it inverts the selection and thus selects all the protrusions and not the cup lid. Now, if we press S with the default settings, which is transform pivot point to the midpoint and transform orientation to global, and we scale, we can see exactly what happens, what always happens. The midpoint is used to scale the object as if it were an object. However, we're going to change that. What we want to do is make sure that we can scroll these individual objects from the inside to the outside. And there's a way of doing that. If you switch the transformation orientation from global to normal and you change the transform pivot point from midpoint to individual origins, you will see that everything becomes a lot easier. If you press S now, you'll see that it's not scaling everything as one big object, but as every individual object by itself, and that's incredibly helpful. So definitely check out the transform pivot point up here. You will definitely use it a lot, especially in situations where you link a lot of objects or have geometry, and maybe something with an array modifier like in our case. And then somehow you want to scale everything in a certain direction. This way of working is definitely worth its weight in gold. So the transformation is set to normal and the transform pivot point to individual origins. If you press S and Y now, you can see that you can move all objects up or down at the same time. And if you press S and X, you can see that you can make things wider or smaller on that axis. And then there's one more axis left. You've already thought it's the Z, and that's what it is, forwards and backwards. So if you want to move it inwards or outwards, you press S and Z, and you can see we have all the axes for these objects. And the same, of course, also applies to movement. So if we wanted to move everything in a certain direction, we could do that by, for example, pressing G and Z and move everything outwards. Now, in that case, it does exactly the same thing as scaling on the normal settings. It's also quite interesting, but what we definitely want to do here now is make everything just a tiny bit bigger. As it is now, it should actually be all right. You see, now we rotate it at some point, and that's not good. However, we have the same rotation in here everywhere. So we can just go to the global up here and we can press RZ, press individual origins, and we can rotate everything at the same time. And as I already said, and you can see, these are all tweaks that you can still do afterwards. I just wanted to show you guys the power of transform orientations and the transform pivot point again to make sure that you got the gist of it. And that means we're now going to be heading into section 3. Also, if this course has helped you so far, please leave a 5-star rating. I'm happy about it. It really helps me if you did. There will be a tutorial at the very end of this whole course in which I will explain how I made these 5 stars right here. So that's a small spoiler for all of you, because we don't want to leave anything that happens here unexplained. Anyway, see you guys in section 3 where we'll be talking about shading and texturing. See you there.